from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez, America's favorite late-night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
It's Dom time. Dom Giordano sitting in on America at Night from Philadelphia, Talk Radio 1210, noon to 3. Follow me on Twitter at DomShow1210. And boy, do we have a lot of breaking news, stories that continue, but developments inside those stories. I'm talking about Ukraine, where we have a situation with a congressman in my area going after Steve Witkoff, who's the president's chief negotiator, around the deal that would end this. And it looked to me earlier today like Ukraine is on board. It's Russia that's not. Witkoff is not the prime guy here. I'm not a big fan. He apparently, we have transcripts of his phone conversations with top advisors to Putin about how to flatter President Trump so that President Trump will move the deal along. Let's let this to Marco Rubio, not this guy. I wonder if America, all across America, agrees with that. Marco Rubio knows what he's doing on this, and he's got to be pretty upset that that's what's coming out, and that's how this guy's negotiating. We have a congressman in my area that listeners and I have a lot of trouble with, Brian Fitzpatrick, in the Philadelphia area, who's really gone after this big time. So it looks like no deal for Thanksgiving, but it looks like it was closing in there and may continue. And surprisingly, it looks like the Ukrainians are the ones looking to agree. They must feel the Russians are slowly but surely taking more territory, and they want it to stop. The other thing that is out there, and now this goes back since I've been filling in on America at Night, that Monday night that we started talking about the original tape of these 6 Democrats obviously doing a stunt to cause political problems. No background about why now. Well, now, today, it comes out the FBI, through the sergeants of arms in the House and Senate, has asked to interview the congresspeople involved and senators on this. And some of them are making a power play as if they're rejecting this. Why will they not talk to the FBI? I think the FBI wants to know why now. They say this is bullying and intimidation. They're the very people that sig the FBI and the federal government on everybody else. Why not answer straight up? We know there's a script, that the script came out. This guy, Gallego, who is the senator from Arizona, is the one that spilled the guts on that, saying that, well, he didn't have time to do the tape. Otherwise, he would have, because he just barely had seen the script. Why a script? Who wrote the script? Where did it come from? Who backed it? Who are the donors? Those are not legitimate questions. If you want to suddenly be talking about illegal orders like anybody thinks these orders are illegal, you know how this has gone. Lisa Murkowski, who is big trouble from Alaska, hammering the Trump administration because the FBI is involved. And you know last night that Mark Kelly could be someone put back on the active roster. It's possible to do that, so that then he could face a court-martial. Doesn't mean he's going to be convicted, but that's what could happen. All right, so all that is bubbling up. We have a lot of economic news today. We're going to talk with our buddy from the Heritage Foundation, EJ Antoni, to lay out what he thinks the news of the day. I mean, a lot of economic news. Some of it good, that core inflation is not spiraling out of control. We're also going to talk with the new host of America at Night, McGraw Milhaven, a little bit later in this hour. Find out what he's up to as he counts down the days. He'll be starting on Monday night, December 1st. I'm with you tomorrow night. Then we have Thanksgiving and such. And then McGraw takes over with a great new plan here of what you're going to be getting every night on America at Night. One thing that developed today that I wanted to play for you, though, And the thing that developed today is a throwback to the Biden era. Fox News reporting today there were up to 12 airports that the Biden people were trying to coerce to take people illegally, not just to flights, but to house them, have them there illegally. Even though these people said, do you know you're putting other passengers at risk? They didn't care. Where were these Democrats when the Constitution was be violated with an invasion of people who don't belong here during the Biden years? And this is just the newest evidence of it that kind of got lost in the shuffle today. Rich, this will be cut to. Here is a little bit on the refugee agencies. Sad to say, some of the prime ones are Catholic, reacting to the Trump administration reviewing the Biden-era refugees. Here's how it sounded.
It's putting everything into question. You know, is this my home? Am I allowed to stay here? Am I able to be here permanently? All of that now seems up for grabs.
The Trump administration taking another unprecedented step in transforming immigration policy. The impact has been felt all year in Western New York. In February, the White House announced it would be greatly reducing the number of refugees accepted into the U.S. We were there as volunteers with Journey's End Ready to Home in Buffalo for what was believed to be one of the last refugee families to be resettled here. Since the summer, there have been reports of increased ICE activity in Western New York, including the arrests earlier this month of 4 men on Elmwood Avenue suspected of having entered the U.S. illegally. And on Tuesday, Reuters and the Associated Press reporting that the Trump administration is ordering a review of all refugees who were admitted into the U.S. under the Biden administration, believed to be close to 200,000 people.
Yeah, that's what they should be doing. The tone there was like, can you imagine we're reviewing all these refugees with no vetting, nothing, that were allowed into the country? As I said today, Fox reporting upwards of 12 airports were coerced. You got to do this. We need you to do this. Remember all those flights, ghost flights? They wouldn't tell us who it is. Airports are landing in the Biden years. It's all coming out. Well, after the fact, they got away with it for now. But that's where we are. And that's what the Trump administration is trying to clean up. And the tone of that is, how dare they, that they're taking a look at all these refugee statuses and all the stuff that went into this. That's absolutely right. It's a huge task, but that's what they should be doing. All right, coming up, we're going to talk with the great EJ Antoni, who is the chief economist at the Heritage Foundation, about all this economic news that dropped today. Some of it portending to, I'll ask him, here we go again with the Fed. The impact of all this Fed talk for the average American is, will they cut rates? If they cut rates again, and by how much, it opens up the housing market a bit. It just opens up America. Yet we have this battle. The guy heading it usually will not do it, drags his feet, and we go on and on and on. Looks like it will happen this time, though. That's one thing I'm going to ask him. And then we'll talk to McGraw about his vision as he takes over on December 1st. All right, you get to me, though, at 833-482-5337.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Yeah, that's right. Dom Giordano sitting in, and I got one of my all-time favorites with us. We work this guy really hard for my show in Philadelphia. We love having him on. EJ Antoni is the chief economist for the Heritage Foundation. A big day. I don't know about a Super Bowl, but a big day on all things economy. EJ, welcome to America at Night.
Oh, Dom, thanks for having me again. It is great to be with you.
Well, EJ, I saw on Fox and Friends this morning, I was unaware of how much economic stuff would come down today. And listeners should know one of the things you've been most involved in is the accuracy of all this. So how are you feeling about the accuracy? Because we can have a million economic indicators, but if they're not accurate, or at least as accurate as we can make them, how are you feeling about that currently?
Oh, Dom, unfortunately, not much has improved. I hate to
Okay.
say that. Wish it wasn't the case, but yeah, that's just where we are. So I'm going to be honest with you. And one of the ways that we can kind of pick up on that is the fact that we're getting so many conflicting signals. And
Yes.
there's signals that, they don't just deviate for a month or two, let's say, but you have long established trends that just aren't moving in the same direction. So that definitely clouds the crystal ball, so to speak. But all that being said, if we want to say, okay, how is the economy really doing today? Take a very holistic view. It's a mixed bag, right? There's some good, there's some bad, there's definitely some ugly too. We continue to try to navigate these troubled waters. Let's not forget the last administration left quite the mess here in Washington, D.C., and really across the nation. Everybody knows that when they go to the grocery store, they put, when they throw groceries in the back seat or gas in the tank, people understand, I think, just how bad the cost of living
Right.
crisis is. Have we made some improvement this year? Sure, absolutely. We've clawed back about a quarter of the losses that we had under the previous administration, but that's not good enough, right? We want to get all the way back, and then we want to make things even more affordable than ever.
Absolutely. The metric that I looked at, and to your point, I would give it mixed, is not to fall into the trap, and I'm sure you would counsel this, of the Biden people. When people say perceptually they're having trouble, don't start giving them stat after stat saying, no, you're not. And I think overall the Trump people are sensitive in doing that. But you know this, you've been in the public on this type of stuff. It's hard in the line of fire not to start saying, well, I think everything's fine. They got to avoid that.
Exactly, Dom. And it really makes me mad because, look, you have elitists on both sides of the aisle. The Democrats do not have a monopoly on elitism, right? The elites are basically just people who want to tell you how to run your life. Now, on domestic issues, those do tend to be Democrats, but not exclusively. There are some Republicans who want to tell you how to live your life, here in the country. It just so happens that most of the elites on the right want to tell other people in other countries how to live their lives. That's why you have neocons,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
But whatever the case, Dom, I think you really hit the nail on the head. There's a lot of room between saying everything is perfect right now, it's all sunshine and rainbows in the economy, and then also saying, oh my gosh, the sky is falling and it's all Trump's fault. No, Trump got dealt a raw hand. He knew what he was getting dealt. That's the only reason he got elected, let's be honest. People love him for the economy. They sent him back to Washington because they want him to fix the economy. Clearly, things weren't great when he took office. Otherwise, he wouldn't have gotten reelected.
Absolutely. Where do you think the president is now? You know, I'm not a tariff guy. And again, it's fundamentally when I broke into talk radio, it's hard for me to move past that. I understand a deal maker like Trump, he's used it to our advantage. But as an overall strategy of how it's going to make us wealthy over the next 20 years, I had guys calling me last night. I don't see that as the big time strategy.
Well, it's not in a vacuum, right? Just like you can't argue for or against tariffs in a vacuum, the tariffs themselves are not a vacuum in terms of overall strategy. What I'm getting at, Dom, is the fact that they're just one of at least a half a dozen major components, other tools, you could say, in this president's toolbox. You got the energy agenda, the regulation agenda, the tax agenda, and we could go on, right? There are a lot of different components here, all of which are aiming at getting us back on track and towards American prosperity. But I will say that I think a lot of the very important issues that you have raised and you have been raising on your show in Philly for last year, essentially, on tariffs, the president and his team are starting to pick up on those facts and are adapting to it. Let me give you an example. We just saw very recently where they said, all right, we're going to reduce or drop tariffs on things like cocoa, bananas, coffee. Why? Because the American consumer doesn't have any alternatives for these products. It's not like we can ever grow them here ourselves, at least not in any kind of cost-effective manner. And so those are cases where the tariffs are very clearly being passed on to consumers and raising consumer prices. So they say, okay, let's get rid of those. It doesn't give us any leverage to have a tariff on coffee. So we're not going to have a tariff on that. Instead, we're going to have a tariff on something like Chinese steel.
Absolutely. Big, beautiful bill comes on board in 2026. And I think it seems like a million years ago. I'm excited about that because I'm a big school choice guy, and it kind of got buried in there, but it's big. What's the biggest thing that you think we'll see once the big, beautiful bill kicks in?
Oof, that's a good one, Dom. I think probably the biggest thing, at least in dollar terms, is going to be the surge in investment. I don't want to underestimate just how much something like the return of full expensing is going to do for business. That is huge. We forget that there was a massive surge in business investment during the first Trump administration that happened starting in literally the very first quarter after the original Tax Cuts and Jobs Act took effect. So that has a tremendous impact. And investment is one of those things where it's great both in the short term and in the long term. In the short term, it's great because it initially will add to the economy, but then it adds even more over time. And this is kind of a mistake some people will make when they talk about, it's great we're getting investment to have a factory to build cars in America, but it's going to be 3 or 4 or 5, maybe more years before that factory is actually open and ready for business and is employing anybody. Au contraire, it is immediately employing surveyors. It is immediately employing all kinds of people doing compliance work. It will very, very shortly be employing construction workers, et cetera. And so even though you're not necessarily employing a manufacturing worker, it immediately starts creating jobs. And then for the life of that plant, it's going to continue supporting jobs and supporting economic activity.
Absolutely. EJ, have a great Thanksgiving. Where do people find you on Twitter and social media?
The handle there on the X platform is @real EJ Antoni. And Dom, thank you so much for having me. You have a happy Thanksgiving too.
Thank you, EJ. EJ Antoni, the chief economist at the Heritage Foundation. And again, all this data conflicting today is the headline. I couldn't agree more with him. He's the expert. You're getting all sorts of things going back and forth all over the place. Again, the Trump administration occasionally slips with this. Do not tell people what they're experiencing is not reality. Reality is their perception of what's going on in their own lives. All right, coming up, the guy who is the man of the hour, we talked with him, I guess it was, days are blurring together. I know I talked with him, introducing him as the new host of America at Night, and that will start on December 1st. McGraw Milhaven, we'll see what he's up to, what he's thinking tonight, what are some of the things he's thinking about as we head through Thanksgiving, and then the kickoff of America at Night. I know he is someone deeply and personally connected to the heritage of Larry King / Jim Bohannon and what it meant here on America at Night and the Bohannon Show and the King Show as far as the heritage of it and the people that are out there somewhat in the wee small hours who are listeners extraordinaire. All right, we'll talk with him. We'll take your calls at 833-482-5337. You're listening to Dom Giordano on America at Night on Westwood One.
America at Night with Rich Valdez.
All right, welcome in, everyone. America at Night, long tradition. Jim Bohannon, Larry King, and soon to be December 1st, McGraw Milhaven. McGraw, welcome back to your own show. Second time I get to say that. How you doing today?
Dom, how are you holding up this week?
Very well. Very well. This has always been, and I know you filled in many times, I think it's in the 300 range or so. It feels like old home because it is such a change from where you and I are every day in daytime radio. It's got a different vibe.
Well, you calling me the Joan Rivers of the America at Night?
I don't know what I am, then. I'm trying to think who else was the Jay Leno. The Jay Leno, yeah.
I filled in. Maybe it was 10 times, 12 times throughout the years. And daytime radio. Daytime local radio is very different than sort of late night national radio. And so I'm looking forward to. I'm really looking forward to, if to be honest with you, I'm looking forward to the guests, but I'm really looking forward to the phone calls, because there's nothing more fun than late night conversations, and you go to the phones and it is a wild card, right? You don't know who you're getting, you don't know where they're coming from, and the best ones, right, just sort of come out of the blue, and you just have a conversation with people coast to coast, and that's what I'm really looking forward to.
What I have found, I don't know about you two, on the Bohannon show was there are regulars that are characters, and they're in cities, and you play with that and all, and they do call in quite frequently, and they're able to help you develop a conversation versus the usual just on the topic. It's something offbeat, and if you listen closely enough, it opens up a nice conversation.
Well, the truth is that, we don't do show for the callers, but you need the callers to do the show, right?
Right.
I mean, you need right, and it's our job to sort of create the callers and pull something out of them and have a conversation with the callers. And so when I was a kid, I was too nervous. I don't know if I told you this the last time. I would call in, and they would then finally come to me, and I would hang up or not talk because I was just too nervous to actually try and talk. And then I finally, after a while, just said, "Stop trying to call in. You're not enjoying the show anymore because you're too nervous about calling in." So I just stopped calling in. So now I encourage people, and I tell stories. When I was, growing up, I was too afraid to, call into a radio show. I'm like, don't ever be afraid. Don't ever worry about it, right? Call me up. Tell me where you are. Tell me what you're doing. And what are you thinking about? And what are you thinking about today? And what do you think about the news? And what's on your mind? And, let's sort of go from there.
Absolutely. You mentioned the guests, too. And I've read a couple of places where you talked with, I guess, extended interviews with guests who are not rushed, the usual 8-minute interview, again, during the daytime. Give us an idea. What are you thinking? Do you have any lined up? Any thoughts on what you're looking for?
Well, so what is we booked a guy today. I don't know if you saw this story, but monarch butterflies, right? They travel from Canada to Mexico, and they're in trouble. They're sort of disappearing, and so scientists are worried about what's going on with the monarch butterfly. Imagine a butterfly flying from Canada to Mexico.
Right.
But and this is true. This isn't crazy. This is true. They've now attached GPS sensors to butterflies. So now they can, like an Uber driver, right? You know where your Uber driver is. You know where these monarch butterflies are, and you see how there are some that fly through Texas into Mexico. There are others that fly down the eastern seaboard into Florida and then into Cuba and then into Mexico. It is a fascinating conversation with these scientists who are studying the monarch butterfly, because they're able now to put little tiny GPS monitors on these monarch butterflies. And so, science. I mean, that's science fiction, but it's science. And so we'll look at that, and again, everyone wants to know what it is. What about politics? Where are you? Are you a lefty or a righty? I don't know. I have no idea, because Marjorie Taylor Greene's out and Mondami's in, so I don't know what's going on with politics.
Yeah, exactly. So I assume. I don't know in St. Louis. Is that your point of you avoid that in St. Louis? It doesn't come up too much in what you do morning drive?
I talk about it as a news story, right?
Okay.
But I don't really care about the opinions. I mean, it's I'm not going to change anybody's mind. This is not agenda driven. My agenda is to be entertaining and to tell fun stories and to get interesting people on to talk about a wide variety of things. And so one day we'll talk sports, the next day we'll talk monarch butterflies, and we'll still talk news, and we'll still talk, politics, if you will, but we'll come at it from I'm just curious and sort of tell me why this is happening, as opposed to screaming, yelling, and ranting and raving and throwing tomatoes at each other. I believe in that there's a lot more that unites us than divides us. And that's the kind of show I want to do. I don't care if you are a Cubs fan, all right? I don't care if, you're a Yankee fan and I'm a Met fan. There's a lot more that unites us. And so, okay, you're a Yankee fan. That doesn't make you the devil, but we both love baseball. So let's talk baseball. So, that's sort of I think talk radio is at its best when it's sort of conversational, especially late at night. I think people are just tired and exhausted of all this hating and screaming and yelling and ranting and raving. And so we're just going to have a conversation.
You mentioned sports, too. I do a lot of that in Philadelphia, and how the things that happen in sports, for example, the tush push and the Eagles comes up endlessly, and I believe the NFL is going to get rid of it because they want parity. They don't want an outstanding team, that type of stuff. Sports stories, are you talking just fandom or stories that have some kind of fun point to them?
So I don't know if you saw this book that came out recently, but somebody recently wrote a book about Earl Weaver, the manager of the Baltimore Orioles. Now, Earl Weaver's been dead for years, and he hasn't been a manager for, 25, 30 years, whatever it is. And believe it or not, it was one of the interviews that I sent when I was interviewing for this job. And the reason why I sent it was because it was Earl Weaver. It was a manager that hasn't managed in 25 years. But I wanted to explain that it's a sports story, but it's really not. It's just a human interest story about this kid who grew up in an orphanage in St. Louis, and he went on to become one of the greatest managers of all time. And how he did it, how he struggled, how he overcame adversity, how he was a mean guy who sort of, but yet was a great players manager. And so I don't know if it had anything to do with baseball, excuse me, but it had to do with human nature. And so I don't think we're going to break down the X's and O's of the tush push, but we'll have some fun with it, right? We'll
Absolutely,
talk about it.
Sure.
And I want to know, I got Saquon Barkley on my fantasy team, so I'm really curious as to find out if he's healthy next Saturday.
I think he is this Friday when they play Chicago. Here in Philadelphia, we're in panic, just one loss. We're going to see more of that. So December 1st, taking over. And again, I really respect how much you follow the King Bohannon eras and really get the vibe of this time of night. Much different as a switch off, much more open to these long conversations. And I think connection to the host. They get to know the host even more than usual.
Well, and that's the thing is talk radio lends itself to, telling you about my 5-year-old daughter, right? I'm an older dad. I have a 5-year-old daughter, and everyone at work calls me Tony Randall. So, I got stories about her and, being an older dad and, trying to figure it out and funny stories. And you tell me your story, I'll tell you my story. And you get to be friends and you get to, trust one another and grow and, over the years. And, that's why radio, and you know this, Dom, better than anybody, they can't kill radio. You know why? Because they've tried.
Absolutely.
They've tried.
Sure.
Absolutely. Ever since they've invented it, they've tried to kill it, and they can't kill it because when it's done right, it's too powerful. And all these kids today, I'm a podcaster. No, you're not. No, you're not. You're doing talk radio. You're just not doing it very well. The good ones are on the radio doing it. And so there are a few good podcasters out there, but they're doing talk radio. As a matter of fact, did you see where Bill Maher had on Seinfeld on his podcast recently?
Yes.
And they started up the podcast, and Bill Maher said to Seinfeld, "Who would have thought that AM radio would be the hottest thing going?" And that's exactly what podcasting is. Podcasting is AM radio. It's talk radio. And we do it. We have an opportunity to do it every night, and the immediacy of it is the greatest thing in the world.
Absolutely. Well, congratulations. Well-deserved. And again, quite a history, quite a difference you'll bring to this starting on December 1st.
Thank you very much, Dom. And I tell you what, a lot of people are asking me, I'm going to do my morning show in the morning and do this at night, and people ask me, how am I going to do it? Ryan Seacrest hosts 9 shows. I'm just hosting 2. How hard can it be?
Absolutely. That's what my wife said. It's not show business. There's no singing. There's no dancing. You spoke for 3 hours a day. Put out the trash.
Right.
Just keep
you
that
would
in
talk
mind.
To me right, exactly.
Yeah,
right.
exactly.
You would talk whether you're on the air or not.
Exactly.
So
I'd be doing the same thing. That's exactly right. All right, McGraw, thank you. Get some rest and be ready to go December 1st here on America at Night.
Dom, happy Thanksgiving to you and everybody else, and I look forward to it, and thanks for keeping the seat warm for me.
You are welcome. Thank you, McGraw. McGraw Milhaven here on America at Night, the new host. You heard his game plan, his mindset, his vibe, and that will all unfold just a few days away. All right, phone lines to get in. 833-482-5337, 833-482-5337.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S. Now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, it's Dom with an M, Dom Giordano. Happy to be with you tonight and then tomorrow night. Get on board at 833-482-5337. That's how you get with us, and it's a big news night. Got something toward the end of the show, a little bit less newsy that plays into Christmas and Thanksgiving. Christmas trees. Is Amazon really delivering thousands and thousands of Christmas trees across America? I remember sitting in on the Bohannon show, and I went back and clipped it. I think it was all the way back to 2018, something like that, where it was proposed, and I said it'll never work. But I wanted to ask tonight, we get into the season later on of tipping. How much do you tip a tree guy, the guy that helps tie it to the car and all? I got answers to that and a bunch of other people. And how many people do you tip? It's endless during the holidays. So we'll certainly get into it. 833-482-5337. Pete Hegseth now has ordered the Navy to review Mark Kelly's record in all. There was even a battle today over his medals and how he has his medals on his uniform. Kelly, I'm talking about. So this is degenerated into quite a back and forth. And it's important because these Democrats, in a stunt, jumped into the ring and put this out there. And now they're reaping the whirlwind. They ought to be interviewed with the FBI. It's a matter of importance to get to the bottom of this. The Ukraine thing looked to me like it was moving toward some potential settlement, and now not so much. All right, let's go to Larry, Charleston, South Carolina, WTMA. Larry, welcome to America at Night.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity to express this thought. And it's that I have realized that this effort from President Trump, although I am a voter for him and a supporter of him, is appeasement. Appeasement didn't work in 1939 with Neville Chamberlain. This concept of if we just give the aggressor what they want, we'll have peace in our time. That's a quote from Neville.
Okay, well, no, let me ask you, though, Larry. The Ukrainians are the ones, though, that seemingly have jumped at this and agreed. The Russians are the ones holding it up. What do you make of that?
I make that they. What do you mean? I don't understand what you're saying. I don't think that they wanted to be invaded.
No. Wait a minute, Larry. I'm talking about the peace deal. The Ukrainians were publicly the first ones to say they're on board with it. some fine points to go back and forth. The Russians are the ones that are balking at it.
Well, that's been the consistent pattern of the Russians, but it's the idea that this is the opportunity for America to try winning.
Well, wait a minute. What would that look like? What do you want us to do?
I want us to use and lead, be a leader, and contact the various strong leaders in the world, like Netanyahu in Israel, and say, how do you do it? How do you work your F-35s to win such tremendous victories? And we need to do that. I'd say, why don't we get together and get Lend-Lease function idea that we don't just give it.
Okay, well, Larry, thank you. With the Lend-Lease stuff, we've already given them hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars. There's a lot of corruption there also. So, we don't need to Lend-Lease. We're directly selling stuff to them, giving it to them, loaning it to them in the future. Billions and billions and billions of dollars. All right, final thoughts of the hour coming up. 833-482-5537.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
It's America at Night. Dom Giordano pinch hitting. You heard McGraw, who will take over on December 1st, ready to go, and some of the things he's planning, and one of the guests that he already booked. That's a good head start. The Ukraine thing is roiling right now. You heard Larry. I mean, we've done as much as we can do for Ukraine. I'm surprised that they agreed, though, to this peace treaty. It seems to lean more to the Russians. And to me, two things can be apropos at the same time. One, Putin is stone cold evil. Two, you have one of the most corrupt places on earth in Ukraine where money goes and it gets lost. So we're not in an easy situation. The bottom line is, what you're seeing play out tonight, this Witkoff guy, the chief negotiator, he's close to Trump, is just doing some foolish stuff, coaching up the Russians how to flatter Trump. Rely on Marco Rubio. Let Marco Rubio do this. Rubio's the guy. Rubio has the skill. Rubio has the trust of President Trump. He's not somebody you're going to push around easily. And if something can be negotiated in the near future, Rubio's the guy to set the groundwork and to get this done. So I don't know why we need the Witkoffs of the world and these others involved in this. It sets up situations that are just not effective. And I thought we were getting pretty close. I'm shocked the Ukrainians were the ones that agreed, because the terms do give up a good bit of territory. They must feel that the Russians are going to get that territory anyhow in the end. It's a wear-down game, and Putin is willing to have his own people die. He doesn't care. He's determined that he's going to reestablish that empire. And apparently in the Soviet Union, they don't have the ability to stop him, to pressure him, or to do anything else. That's what all this is telling you. He's still continuing on this. And I don't care what anyone says. He's a murderer. He's evil. He is the real deal. You have to deal in the real world, though. We need a settlement here. One of the hardest things imaginable will be to get to that settlement in any kind of reasonable way. All right, phone lines are 833-482-5337. Love to get you on board. And again, a little bit later, want to talk holiday tipping here. Dom Giordano from Talk Radio 1210 in Philadelphia on America at Night on Westwood One.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez America's favorite late night talk program, featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Hey, it's Dom Giordano sitting in tonight from Philadelphia. Follow me on Twitter at DomShow1210, and you get in at 833-482-5337. Coming up, we're going to talk with an excellent guest at around 10:15 or so on Eastern Standard Time here on Ukraine, because a lot is breaking around that. But I just had McGraw on, and I talk about sports a lot in Philadelphia, not the X's and O's. This is Sophie Cunningham. I don't think she's an overwhelming player in the WNBA. She's kind of the bodyguard for Caitlin Clark. And Caitlin Clark has put women's basketball on the map. It's incredible what this woman can draw. You know the controversy. Is it just because she's white? No, when you shoot from the logo like she does and some other things she does, that's kind of unique for women's basketball. But Cunningham was addressing Michael Porter Jr., who claims he's in the NBA, pretty good shooter. He beat her in a Missouri basketball practice. He was in the 8th grade. And he went so far as to say not only an outstanding high school team, but the top-notch 8th graders would beat any WNBA team. Now think about it, 8th grade, kids are not, they may be fairly tall, but the WNBA team might have size on them. Now, why does this come up? Why is it important? Because we see constantly men in women's sports. If you had, just picture for a moment, take any one NBA player, not even the big guys, not even Embiid, somebody like that. Take somebody really good, 6'5", 6'7", 6'8". They literally could score 150 points against a WNBA team. I don't care how many of them guard them. As long as they got them the ball, they're going to score almost every time. So this whole idea of men and women's sports is one thing it gets at. It's not to denigrate the WNBA. There's a place for it. I love basketball. That's my sport. I'm talking to the producer. It's his too. More than football even, because I played, etc. I follow it. I follow football voraciously, but basketball even more. And to see some of these women maintain, why can't we have men in women's sports? Well, listen to Sophie Cunningham. I think she plays forward mainly, a power forward maybe. And she's in the news. When Clark gets hit, she generally jumps in. And she's been involved in a lot of racial talk back and forth. She's on a podcast. Here's her analysis. Somebody who plays, at least she starts in the WNBA, cut 7.
Well, so I will just tell you, I was working out, and when did this tweet, can you scroll down? When did this tweet come out yesterday? I guess it's started kind of hitting social media platforms, but I'm not kidding. I think maybe 35 people sent me this tweet yesterday. And yeah. I was like, what? But he said this kind of I feel like a year or at least 4 or 5 months ago, something kind of regarding the same topic. So I thought it was just kind of resurfacing. Mm-hmm. But then I saw it and I was like, people are kind of going in on him because it doesn't the timeline doesn't make so much sense.
Well, from what I gathered, he basically was trying to say no one should compare NBA and WNBA players together because he could beat you guys in basketball in 1-on-1 when he was in 8th grade and you guys were in high school.
I think, and this is my personal opinion, but if you are a professional football player, basketball player, really any sport, but let's just take it basketball because that's where we're both at. To me, if you're in that elite level group, yeah, you should be able to beat the girls. I'm not surprised by that. That is not but I just don't get why it's continuing to get brought up. And if women are saying that he couldn't beat them, yeah, he could. Any NBA star or player could beat a female in high school.
Okay, I agree. I think people are why are you still everything yes. he's ever said is men and women, him just being so weirdly insecure about women being around him and their reflection of him. I think it wouldn't be that big of a deal if he hasn't been talking about
True.
women so much the last 2 years.
All right. Let me sort all this out. The reason why it's interesting, there is another talk show host who has said that you could take the team that wins, just the high school team, one high school, take the team that wins one of the bigger state championships, particularly if it's not the small school championship in the state in basketball, but say one of the big ones. And that team, just that high school team, not an all-star team, would beat a WNBA team. And I believe that's the case. And it gets at the idea of men in sports is one thing it gets at. And it just gets at male and female roles. I don't know fully, this Michael Porter Jr., what he says about women. I'm sure some of it must be awful. But the reason this stuff comes up, at least broadly, is those two reasons. One, male and female differences, and two, particularly when it comes to sports. And this is the ultimate political issue, and I'm going to tell you why. It's an issue that Republicans are winning on, meaning the culture's changing. The culture recognizes it. In the last election, the Trump administration, I'm told, spent about $50 million on those ads, the pronouns, and Kamala Harris, but the sports part of it. Two, we're winning, but it's slowly. The other side's not giving up. There's rear action. There's constant stuff. This is still happening. Now, that's a great issue because it continues to draw people to it. They're enraged when they see this, and rightfully so. Who are we kidding? We've all seen this. A male will dominate if they're half decent. I interviewed the daughter of Lee Smith, who's one of the few relief pitchers in the Baseball Hall of Fame. I'm not sure if she's graduated or not. This was a couple of years ago. She's a track star. She was then in Ohio with Olympic aspirations. Really good 100-meter or 100-yard dash, whatever Ohio does, 220, I think. And she was beaten by these two males who said they identified as females. They were ranked the 27th and 28th runner in times, etc., among the boys in that state. And they made news they were asked, well, is this fair? And they said, she's just going to have to train harder. Now imagine an Olympic hopeful, she can't compete with them. People see this type of stuff. It's not complicated. They get nuts. And it hits reluctant voters. Yeah, I'll go out and vote because I want to know which side's on that. So tonight, Senator Gallego in Arizona, the guy that jumped into the ring on all the stuff with the Sedition Six, he trashed his own parties, allegedly, in leaked texts saying Democrat women look like men and Democrat men look like women. And he talked about how hard it is to move the party away from this stance. He's right. They're still into it. They're still fighting it. They want to die on that hill. That's why I think this is not even an 80-20. It's a 90-10 issue. That's exactly what's going on here. All righty, phone lines. 833-482-5337. Hit us with that. Coming up, we're going to talk with someone with deep knowledge of Ukraine, where we are tonight, what happens next, but we'll take your calls too. Dom Giordano sitting in on America at Night.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Dom Giordano sitting in for Rich tonight on America at Night, sitting in. And it's huge issue, Ukraine. Who better to talk with than Davis Richardson, founder, CEO of America, Ukraine Strategic Partners. He joins us here on America at Night. Hey, Davis, great night to have you on. Thanks very much. How are you feeling tonight? Are you feeling optimistic or a little bit shaken by what's happened here?
Well, we're on the fence about it. We haven't seen the final draft of the plan. That being said, President Trump and the Trump administration ought to be commended for doing their best to bring an end to this war, and that's something to be commended. There's a lot of questions we have surrounding.
Well, tell me the biggest,
security
Davis. Tell me what's the biggest question you guys have.
Well, the biggest one that we have is actually related to the United States. We're America-Ukraine strategic partners, but America is. I'm an American and I'm a U.S. citizen, and we really care about the United States having a competitive advantage in the military. The problem is that the U.S. military really hasn't learned from the European theater too much. The Biden administration never established a technology sharing bridge, despite how much aid was given to Ukraine. And diplomatic tensions have been complicated under both administrations, to put it mildly. We want to make sure that the U.S. Maintains its competitive advantage and, is prepared for any future conflict that may arise with China or Venezuela, which, by the way, those countries are very actively involved in Russia's assault on Ukraine. China is studying what's going on. Iranian Shahed drones, those facilities were moved into Moscow. So this is definitely an axis that we're talking about. And for us as Americans, it's very important that the American military learns from what's been going on in Ukraine so we can properly defend ourselves if we need to in the future.
What do you think is the lesson, though, you and your experts? What's the lesson of this with the Russians? Are you talking to prevent invasion, or are you talking what we've learned from the battlefield? Haven't we learned that the Russians are substandard, or am I off on that?
Well, of course, there's obviously the geopolitical elements at play. But in terms of lessons learned from the battlefield, I mean data, I mean new forms of drone warfare, new methods that have been developed around artificial intelligence. The problem with the U.S. Defense industry is that it favors a couple large companies, and really their R&D facilities that haven't been tested on the front lines. When you look at which countries in the world have two combat-ready military, there's only two in the world right now, Ukraine and Russia, and one's on our side and the other very much is not. So it's very important for us to know exactly what the new form of warfare is going to look like in the future.
Okay, well, obviously drones, right? What else other than drones is the new thing? And it's astounding. Well, you mentioned AI. How is AI playing out?
Well, we've seen this with swarm technology. So you can actually have fleets of drones between 24 to 100 FPV drones, which are all controlled by AI, which can detonate a target. And that actually also turns it into an economic game, because essentially an FPV drone costs about $1,000, $2,000 to manufacture, and it can blow up a $30 million tank produced by one of the large companies. So it's really about being nimble. The software that's being developed in a lot of these companies, and as an American, it's my fear that one day we might have 1,000 FPV drones on a stadium in Ohio or something like that. So we need to be prepared. It's a scary world out there. President Donald Trump even has said that multiple times. So that's one of our main focuses right now.
Davis Richardson is with us. Davis, have we learned defensive measures with drones? We see the effectiveness. What about either side? Have they developed defenses against this swarming?
Well, this is rapidly evolving every day. So the speed of which tactics are being developed. So there was a swarm operation that took place on a Russian Air Force base this past summer. Then new defense capabilities and EW and jamming get built around to defend against that strategy. It's constantly reiterating, it's constantly changing, and you need to stay on top of it. Our concern is that America's kind of been asleep at the wheel with what's going on there. Now, I'm not advocating for any kind of military involvement, but I would like just proper channels open between the Ukrainians and the Americans, and we're sharing lessons learned on both technical expertise, but also some of the larger geopolitical things, which you also mentioned there.
Well, do you believe we've learned anything about Putin through all this?
Well, Putin's a killer. I don't think there was any doubt in anyone's mind about that. And again, it's a scary world. I think what it has done is it's solidified everything and showed us who our adversaries might be in the future. Again, this is very sophisticated supply chains that are being supported by India, by China, by Iran, but North Korea was sending conscripts to fight in Ukraine. Mm-hmm. So it's a scary world out there.
All right. Well, Davis, hang right there. We'll talk a little bit more. Davis Richardson, founder and CEO of America Ukraine Strategic Partners. Looking at this from the perspective of America, what are we learning after spending all this money? Are we learning what to do to defend better? With Putin, we've learned what? Is he still a rational actor? We know he is a stone cold killer. Think plutonium. And anybody that denies that, let's look at it from Putin's side. Stop it already, okay? I definitely agree with him on that. And he talked about AI and drones coming out of this. It's frightening, is it not, to think, great point, the cheapness of the drone taking out a multi-million-dollar tank or other artillery or something of that nature. It's cost effective. It really is asymmetric. It frees up the battlefield to just about any hostile actor. The only response would be just to decimate them. So we'll get more with him. But also tonight, it looks like we were getting closer to some type of settlement. And now it looks like this transcript coming out of Witkoff, our chief negotiator, is undercutting that. Rely on Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio is the guy to deal with this whole thing, is savvy enough to do it. I'm not a fan of Witkoff. I know he's friends with the president and all that. I don't see this guy as the master negotiator. This deserves a level of a Rubio to be intimately involved. Let him navigate this if it is navigable. But our guest, I think, is looking down the path, down the future with all this money spent. What do we know that actually in the world right now works? We ought to be able to take away from that conflict, that at least, after spending God knows how many hundreds of billions. All right, 833-482-5337. That gets you to me. You can jump right in now with any kind of comments. I'll take your calls on that and everything else. Dom Giordano, great to be sitting in with you tonight. America at Night on Westwood One.
America, this is Night. This is Rich Valdez.
This is Dom. This is America at Night. Dom Giordano from Philadelphia, talking with Davis Richardson. A unique angle. What's in this for America? What do we learn from this? What happens next? There's an argument that the material that was released is really a Russian wish list of what they want. But it seemed to me, all the sound that I could find today, the Ukrainians seem to be in agreement with the outline of the plan. How close are we to getting a settlement? Davis Richardson with us, founder and CEO of America Ukraine Strategic Partners. So, Davis, are we close to a settlement after hearing all the prelude to this?
Our contacts in NATO and Five Eyes and USG indicate that we're getting close to something and that we may see a resolution. Those are what our contacts are telling us. Now, I'm a little bit worried because I know that from firsthand experience, having ballistic missiles fly very, very low, right above the places where I'm staying, all throughout Ukraine, not just Kyiv either, but Sumy and Kharkiv, which are about 10 miles from the Russian border in frontline communities. As these discussions were going on, the Russian military unleashed a very dangerous and deadly attack, which killed many civilians in Kyiv. So that's who you're negotiating against, right? So our contacts say that we're close to something. And, our company, we want to be close to something too. From my own personal experience on the ground, I'm a little bit worried just based off of what we've seen and experienced by the Russian military firsthand, which is nowhere near a fraction of what our Ukrainian partners have gone through. So our fingers are crossed that this will be resolved and that the right actors are going to take precedent with these negotiations.
Well, Davis, what would the Russians do so they settle? I mean, isn't Putin's goal to restore empire, etc.? What would stop him from continuing at some point in the pretty near future? Would he wait certainly until Trump's out of office, maybe somebody weaker there?
Well, I think it's a peace through strength approach like President Trump's advocated for. I think a lot is going to depend on the points of the revised plan, which we haven't seen yet, that are related to U.S. security guarantees. What I would like to see and what I think is in America's best interest, as well as that of the Ukrainian people, we want to see a marriage between a lot of the Ukrainian manufacturers and a lot of these companies which have come up since 2022. And we want them integrated into the U.S. defense industrial base, and we want a marriage. And if there was a marriage like that economically with very strong security guarantees that ensured that our military was up to date and got lessons learned from the battlefield for proper deterrence, I think that would be enough to deter Putin. But again, this guy is a total killer. A few weeks ago, in addition to our work in the defense industry, we also do a lot of initiatives in support of cultural preservation of Ukrainian art and culture. And 2 weeks ago, our partners, a Gen Z art collective in Kyiv, was hit. And this wasn't the first time they were hit. So Russia's deliberately targeting Gen Z artist communities. And that's not military, that's not critical infrastructure, that's not energy. That's young kids that are just making paintings and contributing to their country that way.
What do your sources tell you? Putin in Russia, it seems to be that he was on the ropes there, if not on the ropes, a little bit. I don't hear anything that I see in the media out there that would indicate that at this point. Does he have fears of an upheaval there?
Well, I think part of the way that the initial 28 plan came out was very selective framing by Russian operatives and by some of the folks that Special Envoy Witkoff had been in discussions with. From what we're seeing, Ukrainian companies are striking deep into Russian territory, and this goes into our conversation on Ukraine's emerging defense base. Mm-hmm. They recently developed a long-range ballistic missile, the Flamingo. There was a military conference called Brave One, which we were actually partners in producing and coordinating. So there's a lot of innovation. I don't think it's going well for them. They've lost a lot of soldiers, and it's massively unpopular with the world, this thing. But again, when you look at the ideology of some of these oligarchs surrounding Putin, to them, the biggest mistake of Russian history wasn't the breakup of the Soviet Union. It was actually the Bolshevik Revolution, because that's what dissolved the Russian Empire, which was based in Kievan Rus. And where's Kievan Rus? In Kyiv.
Right.
So that's what they want, and Alexander Dugin, a very prominent Russian propagandist, was saying that within 2 years, Ukraine is going to be all theirs. So that's the mentality of these people, and they need strength to deal with them. And President Trump has asserted that with the recent round of sanctions that went into two of the oil suppliers. And yeah, we need a strong show of force, because the Europeans certainly haven't done it.
I'm asking you, though, given the decimation of the Russian military, at least what I read, what I sense, is there no repercussion for Putin in his own country?
Well, it's not just Putin's war, right? This is really on, Russia as a whole. There are a lot of enablers in this, and it's not just Russia. It's also the countries that we previously discussed: China, Venezuela, Iran, North Korea. This is a very significant operation to wage this, and as decimated as Putin's military has been, this is still a combat-ready military, and Putin doesn't want to see a situation where it's those soldiers then return from front lines and then start domestic violence, alcoholism. So, I mean, there is incentives for him to keep this up and to continue killing civilians.
You keep on referencing that combat ready, and I just have a sense here. You think the U.S. military is not tested and may not be combat ready. Am I right?
We're a little bit worried.
Yeah,
we're a little bit worried.
Well, under Pete Hegseth, does that worriment go up or down?
Hegseth has done a phenomenal job with his mandates, and he's really trying to change how procurement is done in the United States. A couple of the military officials that were dispatched to Kyiv, General Randy George, who's the Army Chief of Staff, who was accompanying Army Secretary Dan Driscoll. We briefed General George actually a few weeks ago during the AUSA conference in Washington. His team is fully aware of the threats, and then he gave a keynote address. Had nothing to do with our briefing. These were prepared remarks that he'd already had, but it was all about how, the U.S. military needs the defense industry, but the U.S. defense industry needs to do better. Things cost too much. There's lengthy times, and it can be detrimental to the warfighter, really. So Hegseth understands that, and I think the right things are being done right now. It's just government, no matter who's in charge, is a very slow-moving beast. Our main priority is we want a technology bridge between the United States and Ukraine that exists as part of those security guarantees.
Davis, thank you so much. And where do we find you? Where do we find you on Twitter or website? Where do we go?
You can check out our website, ausp.co. I'm also on LinkedIn, Davis Richardson, Twitter, Instagram. Would love to connect with anyone with interest in this subject. And we have a lot of really exciting initiatives and projects which we're engaged with in Ukraine, both on the defense side, but also as it relates to reconstruction, as well as, just helping regular people. Because as much as we're talking about all of these cold geopolitical storylines, it's really innocent people and real people that are impacted by all of this.
Davis, have a great Thanksgiving. Thank you for coming on tonight.
Thanks for having me, Dom. Really appreciate it.
All right, Davis Richardson. All right, a unique view on Ukraine and where we are tonight. That was pretty far-ranging. Love to get your response to the whole thing. It seems like, even he agreed, if not imminent, we're drawing closer to it. 833-482-5337.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
guest leaves every night and we're doing open phones, kind of at the heartbeat of America. And you sit there in this radio studio and suddenly you hear voices. Mobile, Dallas, New York, Miami. And it's kind of a conglomeration of America all in one room.
All right, that's America at Night. That's what we strive for. Dom Giordano sitting in tonight, 833-482-5337. Let's go to Wayne, Bethesda, Maryland, WMAL. Hi, Wayne. Go right ahead.
Hi there. I was just kind of curious because I used to only listen to so-called conservative talk radio and Fox News, and I'm an extremely conservative individual, but I will tell you the following. I will say to you that since after the past 2 years, maybe 3 years, that I have started listening to, shall we say, more independent media,
Okay.
I have gotten a much better cross-section of analysis of what's going on. And I'm going to be really, really frank with you. When I listen to your station a little bit and I hear Putin is a killer, like a couple times in 5 minutes. Do you know how blatantly that sounds like propaganda? And do you know how ignorant, if people were to only listen to this station, how ignorant listeners would be of what's really going on?
Well, Wayne, thank you for that you put it that way, so I'll try to be calm about it. But I'll say 100 times in 30 seconds, he is a stone-cold, evil killer. What world are you in? What evidence would you need of that, Wayne?
What do you mean, what evidence do I need? Do you know what happened in 2014? What happened in 2014 in Ukraine? Have you shed any light on your listeners as to really what the history of what has happened with the United States and how we've infiltrated Ukraine, how we've tried to get we overturned a democratically elected a president or leader, should I say, in Ukraine in 2014 and put in a puppet and tried to put in NATO in there and have threatened with, not according to the New York Times, over 10 CIA outposts in eastern Ukraine, threatening Russia. And we're talking about Putin as a killer. It sounds so silly.
It's silly, okay, Wayne. Yeah, well, Wayne, thank you. The people that listen to me are informed. And I would tell you, check out your teapot. Check out what he's done. And you mentioned this so-called puppet. How about the guy that was duly elected and they poisoned him? How about Navalny? How about just the history of this guy? He is stone cold evil. He is a killer on a proportion that is almost unimaginable. Not Hitler, but the modern day version approaching that. Independent journalist. Yeah, right. Give me a break. If we can't agree on that, and he invaded a sovereign country here, and is NATO a threat to Russia to do what? The only threat to Putin are his own people. Let's go to Dan in Salem, Wisconsin, WLS. Hi, Dan.
Hi, Dom. That Wayne is a Democrat. He was a liar. But anyway, I was going to tell you, I'm so upset about these people that are supporting illegal aliens and fighting against the ICE agents and claiming, oh, they're just working. They just want to make a better life for themselves and work. Well, leave them alone when ICE agents, when they're going after the ICE agents in Chicago. Because I live right on the border. I live on the border of Illinois and Wisconsin on the Wisconsin side.
Well, Dan, to your point, the New York Times has a big piece today. This poor guy, I think in Minnesota, who his identity was stolen by this guy 3 times, has been evicted from the country from Guatemala, driving illegally, drunk driving, gets in an accident, kills somebody, IRS, and they go after the poor guy in Minnesota, an American citizen, over 1 million identity thefts. These are people that are not necessarily the most criminal of aliens, but just their mere presence and to stay here, they commit these crimes that harm Americans.
Right. And Dom, the point I wanted to say too, and thank you for pointing that out. But I was going to say, most of all, I'm in the tree care industry.
Right.
They are killing me. They're coming in here. You know, you don't need a college education to do a tree job.
Mm-hmm.
They're coming in 15 guys on a crew. I don't know how they're paying them. What are they paying them? $25 a day? I don't. And they're just killing my industry. I own 3 acres in a business park, so I'm zoned properly. I pay taxes. I have insurance on my business. I have insurance on all my equipment. I'm trying to do everything right. I'm zoned properly. And these guys are just coming in and stealing all the tree service jobs because they're undercutting me.
You know what, Dan? I'm so glad you called about that, because this is exactly why Trump was elected. Situations like yours. So I feel you on that. Thank you, Dan, very much. Wish I could say more other than to underline it here on a national show. That's exactly right. Undercutting Americans. Sometimes at the upper level, the HB1 visa nonsense. America has all the talent in the world. We don't need to be importing hordes of people, legally, illegally, or whatever. We got it. Let's use Americans. All right, final calls of the hour coming up. Dom with you here on America at Night.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
It's America at Night. Dom Giordano, Dom, D-O-M, happy to be sitting in. It's been the longest time I've sat in on America at Night. It's been a blast. I'll be with you again tomorrow night. Then don't forget, the new host, McGraw Milhaven, will start on December 1st, and he kind of previewed some of the things he'll be doing. So exciting times here at America at Night. Dan in Winder, Georgia, WDUN joins us. Hi, Dan.
Hello. I was calling because my brother, Thomas A. Dolgen, is a military veteran, and he's been missing for 10 years. And I am homeless, and I will not work. I get Social Security. I'm living in my truck because something so unnatural is going on. When I go to the VA hospital, he's mentally ill. When I go to the VA hospital, you would think that these people think that I am the devil. They will not help me. They will not work with the local police that I have a police report out for them, missing. They will do nothing. There is something so unnatural happening in this world right now.
All right, Dan. Well, thank you. Have a good Thanksgiving. Thank you very much. I hope this gets resolved for you. All righty, 833-482-5337. Great guest. The guy that we had on really wired into all things happening in Ukraine. And you heard him suggest that he thinks, if not imminent, maybe sometime this year, we're going to see some kind of settlement. But a guy calling me, is there anything in the world other than gravity? I should do the top 10 the next hour of things that are universally true. Putin is one of the worst killers in history. Take a look at that. Listen to your independent media. Dom telling you that here on America at Night on Westwood One.
Live from the city that never sleeps. 17 miles from Madison Square Garden, New York City. It's America at Night with Rich Valdez. America's favorite late night talk program featuring interesting guests from around the world and calls from across America. And now, here is your host, Rich Valdez.
Dom Giordano rounding out the night with you. Talk Radio 1210 in Philadelphia. Please follow on Twitter at Dom Show 1210 at Dom Show 1210. All right, I went back in my archives, filling in on the Jim Bohannon show, And I don't know if it's accurate, but I'm looking at the date of this article from Good Morning America, November 19th, 2018. And I believe I was filling in, and I saw this story, and I remember the crew there at that point. They were going, oh, come on now. People are not going to really do this. Well, maybe 7 years later, it appears they are. And that is, and I had callers, even an argument around this, about Amazon selling Christmas trees to be delivered at your house. I mean, you buy everything else at Amazon. You know, we've added to the lexicon porch pirates, stuff like that. I saw the other day stats, porch piratry. It's almost $1 billion a year in New York of what's stolen, the guesstimate, or more. So would you consider, I'm looking for anybody out there at 833-482-5337, anybody that would have Amazon deliver that Christmas tree to the house. Apparently they're doing it. Amazon said customers at that point can order everything from a small Charlie Brown-esque tree to one 7 feet tall. They will range in price from $20 to $110 depending on which type you choose. $110. Wow. I don't know what the tree price range. I'm sure in America we have somebody out there that's going to tell us what the range is this year. So I wanted to mix that in, but also talk about we're on the cusp of the kickoff to the real holiday season post-Thanksgiving, and that is something I do every year on my show, which is the tipping wars. Who do you tip and how much? I'll start off with the tree guy. See, is it that big of a problem for people to go and get the tree as a family kind of thing? I mean, it's not the easiest. They have to tie it to the car. What is it you give the tree guy? I've had people, a program director, saying you got to give him $15. I'm thinking, what? Is the world zombies taking over? No way. $5 might even be on the high side. You slip him a few bucks, he puts some rope on there, and it sort of stays on your car. Who else do you tip during this? And there have been all kinds of Wall Street Journal stories over the years about tipping teachers. You know, the gift your kid gives to the teacher. And some to curry favor, Broadway show tickets, stuff like that. Like, what the heck is going on? So how many people on your list do you think you should tip? I remember getting a call from a tow truck driver telling me if he tows you during a certain period of time, post-Thanksgiving, all the way through, that you have to tip him in the Christmas spirit more than you would ever tip. You're going to see the tip jar up. And sometimes they put it up like tomorrow, Wednesday, even before Thanksgiving. The tip jar up for jobs that don't deserve tipping, for the holidays particularly. I don't know, maybe they put some green and red around it. All right, phone lines are 833-482-5337. You get on board. Would you consider having Amazon deliver that Christmas tree to you? My biggest gripe with Amazon and all these deliveries too is they're still doing it as we head into the holiday season. Where you are, I hope it's not happening as much as I see it in Philadelphia. They refuse to park. They block up traffic. They make people swerve to go around them into oncoming traffic, etc. And I'm not blaming the drivers. I'm just saying that must be the edict. Even if there are spaces to pull over, they won't do it. And we'll see this endless parade over the next 30 days or so of this, which endangers everybody. All righty, 833-482-5337. You get on board. And tomorrow night is one of the biggest made-up holidays. I'm not sure if it's still as overwhelming. And that is people coming back from college, or they're coming from somewhere else back to the hometown. The drinking night. Is it really one of the biggest drinking nights of the year, the Wednesday before Thanksgiving? That whole calendar schedule. This came up in Philadelphia because sadly a guy got drunk, fell into a canal, and the parents sued this area in Philadelphia with a lot of bars, saying they were at fault. And it came up how big and wild the drinking was on that night, the night before Thanksgiving. People coming home, college particularly, etc. All right, so here's how you get in. 833-482-5337. We had a great guest tonight talking about the American perspective on Ukraine, where it looks like something is cooking. But this guy Witkoff, the president's chief negotiator, I don't care if he's a billionaire and he's giving up stuff, he's screwing up. We have a transcript of telling the Russian ministers, those close to Putin, how to flatter Trump to get Trump to move on this deal. Hey, let's have Rubio do this, don't you think? That's the better option here. Rubio's the man to get this done, and we move on from this. And the guy we had on was talking about what did we learn through all this? Did the American military, with all the money we spent, learn any lessons about the real world of combat, particularly drone action, swarms of that, other weapons that might be involved? Now, all of a sudden, though, it looks like the Ukrainians are on board. And I've had a guy call me tonight. There's always one. He listens to the independent media. And the independent media says, of course, all these things that I don't know. What more do I need to know about Putin? How much more do you need to know? Do you want to kid yourself that he is not somebody who ranked? Bill O'Reilly's a friend, his new book, Putin, prominently featured in there. Pure, cold, stone cold evil. That's exactly what he is. And look at what he's doing in his own country. Apparently, they have enough visions of grandeur, returning grandeur, that they're giving him the license to continue to prosecute this war, even though the casualties for the Russians are unbelievable. All righty, 833-482-5337. That will get you on board. Who do you tip, and how much do you tip them? Michael in Dallas, Texas, KLIF is first up. Hey, Michael. Yo, Michael, are you there? Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. Give us a call back. Mike in Chicago, Illinois, WLS. Hey, Mike, welcome to America at Night.
Hey, Dom, I'm here, and I wasn't calling in about Christmas stuff, though. I was calling in about some stuff that's going down in Chicago.
Yeah, go right ahead.
I'm sure you heard about that girl that was set on fire last week with the guy that had 50.
Yep. Oh, absolutely.
Then Friday night, we had hundreds of black kids running around downtown, killing each other and shooting each other. This isn't the next thing. We hit the trifecta. This happened early Sunday morning and hasn't hit the mainstream media yet, but it's going to be big. 2 Venezuelan boys, aged 14 and 16, killed a homeless man for fun. Downtown Chicago.
Right.
That's
well, look, I've lived in Philadelphia all my life, and again, Chicago strikes me as incredibly violent, and I've lived in a place where there's a good bit of it, and it seems that the violence there spills over into your better sections. You know, people mass, and we see that on, do you call it the Golden Mile? What's the best part of Chicago called downtown?
Mag Mile.
Yeah.
The Magnificent Mile.
Yeah, and it even spills into there. If you can't control that, what hope is there out in the outlying areas?
These kids were illegal aliens. They've only been here for 2 years. They came from Texas. One guy had an alien admissibility case against them, a 16-year-old. They're brothers.
Wow.
It's messed up.
I would tell you, it looks like the mayor would be reelected, though, right? Even though his popularity rating is single digits.
We're fighting the teachers' union. That's who's backing him.
I would tell you, you have, and this is my area of expertise, Mike. I came from the teaching ranks. I'm used nationally on this. For my money, you have the worst teachers' union in the world. They are thuggish beyond belief, and you know, but listeners should know, the expose recently of how much they spent on travel to fancy places where they have one of the worst school districts in the world.
Exactly.
Yeah, it is stunning.
The teachers' union itself has not submitted their dues for the last accounting of the dues for the last 5 years. The Department of Education is going after them. And they're communists. They all,
definitely.
The four leaders all make $250,000 a year,
right?
And it's really. Hey, listen, Dom, I don't want to spend too much of your time ragging on Chicago. There's more guests, but thank you for getting me on
Mike,
here and getting
thank you. I
there.
appreciate it. Thank you, Mike, very much. Look, I know about the Chicago Teachers Union. Chicago itself is, and that story that he talked about is heart-wrenching. And again, living in Philadelphia all my life, still, Chicago puts the fear of God in me. All right, here's how you get in. 833-482-5337, you get to me. Would you buy a tree, having Amazon deliver it? Is it that much of a, I remember bringing this up. I'm sitting in the same place, and it seems like 6-7 years ago. One of the producers, no, I don't think he was on that night, Alex, I don't, might remember, and people were flooding it in. What's wrong with that? Of course I would have Amazon deliver it to me. I live in a city or something like that. Don't you have a local tree guy you go to, and you get it done? All right, 833-482-5337.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
This is Dom Giordano sitting in Philadelphia, Talk Radio 1210 at 833-482-5337. I'm not sure, maybe it's a little bit overvalued, but one of the hit HBO series is in the news. I almost asked EJ Antoni, a big-time economist, tonight about this. Task, Season 2 of Task, which is set in Delaware County, just outside Philadelphia. The Delco accent is all the rage. It is incredible. You know what? That reminds me. Tomorrow night might be a good night to get on the accent guest that I've had on my show in Philadelphia. And this is just gone crazy with that show, and the Mayor of Easttown was the other one. Big HBO shows. So Pennsylvania decides to give this company, Mark Ruffalo, Task 2. This is their second year. They gave them a tax credit of $49.8 million. They believe that's the biggest in U.S. history. If it's not, I got to hear. How in the world do you pick winners and losers like this as a state government? Well, we have a governor who's running for president, Josh Shapiro, and this is all an entree with Hollywood, etc. But imagine they get a tax credit of $49.8 million. And then they brag they're going to create, I think it's 3,000 or 4,000 jobs and $194 million in return on investment in the Philadelphia area. Preposterous. Unbelievable. But Hollywood, again, they just have to film it in Delaware County in southeastern Pennsylvania, and they get $49.8 million as a tax credit. Now, these are people, Ruffalo's an example, Shapiro, these are people that are always talking about fair share. They're progressives, progressive politics, and yet, because they're the film industry, the other industry that I usually go after that gets a similar thing, sports industry. They get stadiums built for them. If not, they're going to go somewhere else. You got to be big time. You need to have a sports franchise, 3 or 4 of them in your city. But imagine $49.8 million. I watched a little bit of Task season 1. I wasn't overwhelmed by it, but it's hot. And something about the Delco accent is, and Wawa, not sure if Wawa's national fully yet or not, is the thing that has all the cachet. But that's almost $50 million they were given. I don't know what taxes they would pay at all then. Are they tax-free? Do we owe them money? My God, how much are they paying here that they get $50 million in one fell swoop? But this is the progressive agenda. Cater to Hollywood, maybe cater to sports teams if you have to, because these are the winners they're picking. There's advantage for them in it. And the average person has to pay more and more taxes. It's the moral thing to do. Seeing this today, though, this isn't like The Sopranos or something. I mean, it's a fairly hot series. It's not groundbreaking, though. It's not anything. Even at that, would I give The Sopranos 49.8? No. I'm not giving them that. Well, they'll go and film somewhere else. Well, why don't we do that with all kinds of businesses? Why is it only something like this? And we come up with these preposterous figures. Every time they do it and they say they're investing it, they then say, oh, my goodness, look at how much this is going to bring back to southeastern Pennsylvania. I think they throw darts at the wall. Let's say 194 million. That'll intrigue people. They'll tell us, oh, yeah, what an event. Go right ahead. Take $50 million and give it as a tax break to a progressive like Ruffalo. Why would he take the tax break? He's a big progressive. He's a guy that likes big government, likes federal spending, likes taxation. Just pay your taxes. Make your film, make your series, task the second year, and move on. We'll all be good. All right, 833-482-5337. You can get on board. There's still a lot more tonight on this showdown with Mark Kelly, Pete Hegseth, the president. The FBI is going to interview people. At least it seems like some of these Democrats are rejecting the FBI interview. They liked it. They liked lawfare against Trump during the Biden years. Why would they not talk to the FBI about this PSA they made? They say it's very simple. They're just trying to remind the troops about illegal orders. So just talk to them, answer a few questions like, was there a script? Who wrote the script? How did all of you get together? What was your purpose in doing this? You expect us to believe it was just to reinform, to amplify, or was it something else? All right, love to talk with you as we round out the night. And hit me, if you're in any field that you think you should be tipped, I'd love to hear from you. I always am amazed at how many people believe they should be compensated during the holidays. 833-482-5337 gets you to me, Dom Giordano. You can follow on Twitter at DomShow1210. All of this happening on America at Night on Westwood One.
Call now 833-4VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
All right, Dom Giordano in. Same number. Jump on board. Love to hear from you. By the way, I am stunned that we've never really had a reckoning on COVID, the petty tyrannies, the military, the school shutdown. So when I see a story like this, it's a story coming out of that era that where a wrong has been righted. Texas pharmacies are able now, that just signed, starting December 4th, signed into law by the governor, to dispense ivermectin without prescription. Now, you may remember during the crisis how any number of people wanted to do things, various remedies, and ivermectin was billed just as something used with cattle or something like that. Turns out not to be the case. A couple of other states apparently now allow you to get ivermectin without a prescription. Arkansas and Tennessee in this shift to do this. And it's just trying to reckon with people wanting to take control of their own health. We see it, of course, with Robert Kennedy Jr., who is the most consequential cabinet member. His legacy with Maha et cetera, will be there. And I don't agree with him on everything. The other day, getting his way and now starting to inch toward vaccinations and autism, the Tylenol autism thing. Look, autism is a huge problem, no doubt. But I haven't seen compelling evidence yet that they've linked it to Tylenol and pregnancy, although the physicians, Dr. Mark Siegel and all these guys I have on, talk about it's a better thing during pregnancy to avoid medications, but they don't see it. The information is not there. But with ivermectin, it's more than just the information on this. It is a choice, a reasonable choice, ought to be what a governor is deciding. And in Texas, Arkansas, and Tennessee now, they have decided, no, we're not going to force you to go through a doctor. You're going to be able to make this decision yourself. It's your life, your medication. We've learned this through any number of modalities people wanted to try during COVID. Now, I'm not saying people were always right. We know the severe death toll. We know everything else that happened. And if it happened again, I don't think under President Trump, a Democrat, what you would see is you would see a reversion to that. They still believe they were right about it. They still believe that somehow or another, the shenanigans that went on that were unscientific were the things that were necessary to deal with. You saw it in New York with Cuomo. You saw it in Pennsylvania where I am with the shutdown, the businesses that went out. And this ivermectin story is just one example of a learning and a try to be a reform around this whole deal that is a long time coming. Let's see how many other states now say you don't need a prescription to deal with this. 833-482-5337. You can get on board. As I said earlier, the two big stories tonight to me, this continuing saga, we're going to see the FBI, probably one of these Congress people will agree to be interviewed. I don't think before Thanksgiving, that would be tomorrow, probably not Black Friday. But I think as we get into December, early December, you're going to see one or two of them do the right thing and be interviewed. And the main question to be asked is, how did all this come about? How did you get into this? Who contacted you? Who wrote the script? What kind of guidance did you have? Would you please share how all this happened? Because it's appropriate to determine intent here. Why all of a sudden did we start with all this illegal order stuff? Well, we were just trying to remind the troops. You don't need to remind them of anything. They're perfectly capable. They have the training. And illegal orders are exceedingly rare. So why go down this path? Well, we know exactly why they're going down this path. It's to get at President Trump. That's exactly what it is. This will be cut one. Here is David Spunt from Fox News talking about the efforts of the FBI to schedule interviews with these 6 members of Congress.
Well, hi, Sandra. Investigators from the FBI and DOJ, FBI is part of DOJ, are making this outreach to staff members on Capitol Hill to set up interviews with members of Congress who appeared in this controversial video. There are 6 of them. Now, these are the members. 2 of them are U.S. senators on the left, the 4 on the right, all representatives, all Democrats, all of them appearing in this video, urging those serving to ignore military orders if they deem them unlawful. A video set off a storm not only on Capitol Hill, but made its way to the Oval Office. President Trump calling for prosecutions of these members of Congress. The DOJ not commenting on any potential probe here. However, interviews with these members expected to take place in short order after the holiday. In the meantime, separately from any DOJ questioning, Senator Mark Kelly is being investigated by the Pentagon. The senator from Arizona and husband of former Congresswoman Gabby Giffords is a retired naval officer, and he's the subject to the Uniform Code of Military Justice. Now, even though he's retired, the Pentagon yesterday announced Kelly could be called back into active duty to face punishment regarding his retirement and rank. Here he is last night reacting to all of this.
Let me start by saying I never questioned any order, and you're required to follow all legal orders. You're also required not to follow illegal ones. And I think most people can figure out, it just takes some common sense in what would be an illegal order. But I think it's important for people to know that they need to be able to stand up and speak out.
Senator Slotkin is a former CIA analyst, and the other four did not serve as long as Kelly in the military and are not subject to being called back into active duty to face any military justice.
Phone lines to get in. 833-482-5337, 833-482-5337.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
Is America at Night. My name is Dom Giordano, pinch hitting tonight at 833-482-5337. So I mentioned this aristocrat, two castles pictured here. I'm reading from the Daily Mail. In Scotland, he launches a bid to find a wife. Now, he's 79. He says she must be much younger because he wants her to produce at least 2 sons, if not 3. No Eskimos, no Scorpios, the poor, the short, Guardian readers. That's the other big paper they must not like. Scots, and anyone who can't fly a helicopter, you should not apply. And this guy is getting a lot of action, but I think he'll find a woman. The first cutoff for interested applicants is age, as the next lady Slade must be at least 20 years younger, meaning women in their 60s need not apply. Sir Benjamin says he is after a good breeder to provide him with at least 2 male heirs, although explains that having already birthed a child is not a deal breaker. I can have 2 sons, 3 would be better. But if I get 2 sons, that saves the situation. Inheritance, so he wants to leave all the art and castles and all that too. Then he goes on to say, you always have a lady of the house. Women run houses. People think that's sexist. Jane Austen said, if you got a big house, you need a wife. Oh, my goodness. I bet this guy finds some degree of happiness, some degree of women who will be happy to apply and see him through. One other thing, I've been busy doing my own show, and I've been doing America at Night, so I haven't had time. Even on the weekend, I didn't have a desire to see this. I had other stuff. But Ken Burns is a guy who has, I'm trying to think of the first documentary that Ken Burns did, but he's got Trump derangement syndrome, among other things. He has become woke, and his newest is about the Revolutionary War. I watched a little of the opening. It was the most drawn-out, boring thing imaginable. And now he's caught up because he's saying that our great country and the Revolutionary War and the patriots and the geniuses, they were basing this on the Iroquois nations and how wonderful it is what the Native Americans were doing, the system that they have set up. Several people went after him today saying that this guy, he implies that the Iroquois Confederacy, a union of 6 Indian tribes in New York State, critically influenced the founding of the United States. And National Review and others say that's a nice fairy tale, but there's no truth to it. So why would this guy do it? Well, he's trading in. You know, nobody has a cachet when you mention documentaries. Think of the documentarians out there. Who are the ones we know? Ken Burns. This guy has really eroded credibility. Michael Moore. Did he ever have credibility? Dinesh D'Souza, who has produced some big things and has been attacked for some of them. But taking on the revolution and trying to rewrite this in a manner that this was all evolved from the Native Americans and the Iroquois tribes, it's just not. These were geniuses. In fact, my biggest thrill of the compromises and what they came up with is the Electoral College. Could there be anything more of a genius? We're not going to have the popular vote where just the big population states would overrun it. That's exactly what would happen. 4 or 5 states you would have to compete in. It would be mob rule. By the Electoral College, particularly if you're a swing state, we have to compete all over the place. And even the small states have some degree of say. The bigger states proportionately have more. And ever since the early in the 1800s, that we've codified this a little bit better, we have moved forward with this. And those that don't get the Electoral College don't get the grand compromise, the genius of this. I don't think Ken Burns does either. The thing that I've seen that I would commend to you is lightning. It's the story of James Garfield, a very underrated president who was on his way to be a big-time reformer, and based on this and what I've read about him, was very thoughtful. Killed by a guy who wanted to be a great man, Charles Guiteau. All you need to know about him is he went into the free love movement where women were supposed to service men, be part of that on demand. They wouldn't do it for him. They did it for others in a farming situation. He goes on to try to get inside politics in every way, shape, or form. And somehow or another, in the end, he turns on Garfield. He doesn't kill him when he shoots him, but as a result of the injury and the probing for the bullet, Garfield ultimately dies. Garfield said, hey, it's as much of a chance of being hit by lightning as being assassinated. One of the 4 presidents to be assassinated ultimately. But it really gives you a very good look at America at that time. And I think it makes us have another approach to Garfield and what he would have accomplished if not assassinated. It's on Netflix now. I think it's really, really well done. That's the one thing that I've seen recently, but not Ken Burns and the Iroquois nations as the model for the Founding Fathers and for the Revolution. Just not there in any way, shape, or form. So what happens tomorrow? Well, tomorrow, day before Thanksgiving, you would think there'll be a lot of lighter stuff. Not in the Trump era. I would tell you in talk radio, it used to be over the holidays, you would hear best ofs in some regard, like in Philadelphia where I am. But during the day, at least, due to Trump, anything can happen at any time. We could have tomorrow that the Ukraine war is settled, at least on paper. Doubtful, but that's where we're going. That's what's happening, the churning. It's like a 20-minute news cycle, not a 24-hour news cycle with Trump. But I think we'll see a lot more of this coming up. All right, Dom Giordano sitting in on America at Night.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez. Call now, 833-4-VALDEZ. That's 833-482-5337. 833-4-VALDEZ. That's Valdez with an S.
This is America at Night. Dom Giordano from Talk Radio 1210 in Philadelphia. Pinch hitting. Great night. Big news night. You get in at 833-482-5337. Make that final call here on America at Night.
This is America at Night with Rich Valdez.
Dom Giordano sitting in on America at Night. Macaulay Culkin has surfaced in a Variety interview. The 45-year-old actor described an adult Kevin as a busy single dad whose neglected son turns the house into a trap-filled fortress to teach him a lesson. The story flips the original where young Kevin defended his home from burglars, focusing instead on rebuilding their bond through slapstick chaos. Oh, please, don't do this. I love Home Alone, and the second Home Alone. The third was like Godfather 3, brutal. Don't do it, Kevin. Don't mess this up anymore. No, no, no. 3 no's on this. Do not do it. Hey, thrilled to be sitting in tonight on America at Night. Be with you again tomorrow night to round it out. Thanks to Rich Good, producing, keeping everything moving, and executive producer Alex Hinton here behind the scenes, supplying great guests tonight, great conversation. Hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for listening to America at Night. Dom Giordano sitting in on Westwood One.